One thing, of course, as lawyers, we know that research is our main fundamental grounding for any work that I'm going to learn. And this is something that I tell even juniors who come to me and ask me about how to build a practice, is that research is your foundation.
Hello and welcome back to the Super Lawyer YouTube channel. Today, we are delighted to welcome Esha Shekhar ma'am. Ma'am is the founder of ES Law Offices and a leading expert in workplace gender laws and POSH compliance. With over 12 years of experience as a legal journalist, litigator, entrepreneur, and corporate counsel, she has been instrumental in guiding organizations across diverse sectors to build inclusive, safe, and legally compliant workspaces. As the co-author of Understanding Workplace Laws for Women in India, she is deeply committed to creating awareness and empowering companies through specialized training and policy development. We welcome you today, ma'am. My name is Anshi and I work as an associate with the Super Lawyer team. At Super Lawyer, we showcase inspiring journeys of legal professionals, offering valuable insights to greatly motivate and benefit our readers, which are the legal community at large. I'd request Divya ma'am to now please continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome, Esha. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure. As per my understanding, last time when you spoke with Super Lawyer team, you were moving from journalism to litigation. You have had a long journey of 13 years now. That has a mix of many profiles. You have worked as a lawyer, you are also an entrepreneur. How has all this shaped your understanding of the profession and the work that you have been passionately doing for the clients and for the society? And once again, welcome to our Super Lawyer YouTube channel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Divya. And thank you, Anshi, both of you for inviting me for this interview. And it's been a great pleasure to come here because, like you said, one of the interviews that I had given was long time back when I was transitioning from my first job as a journalist and I moved to litigation. I would say that when I went into litigation, from there, the journey to having my own firm where I work on gender related laws as well as do other corporate work. That journey just has been about my personal goals shifting and trying to figure out in between, like, what are my personal goals and what are my professional goals, and I'm working hard to align both of them. So when I did litigation, I did 3 years of litigation, but for me, what I understood about myself was that litigation was not my end goal. It was not something that I could have even envisaged as an end goal for me. What my interest from the very beginning was always a mix of things. And I always wanted to do something where I can get different aspects together. For example, legal, policy, corporate work, everything, impact work. How could I structure my work accordingly that it could have filled all these four prongs? And my journey has been an effort, or I would say just like a process to make sure that I am able to fulfill all four for myself. When I do corporate work for clients vis-a-vis POSH Act, or vis-a-vis my work as a fractional general counsel, or if the work has an impact vis-a-vis the work that I do with the government sector or for the PILs, etc., that has been filed in different courts, or just if you say the work as a lawyer that combines all of them together.
Wow. So moving on with this particular passion of yours, what is the fuel behind it? Why are you so motivated to work on POSH laws? And how have you built this whole specialization unique for yourself? You have written book also. You work passionately with the government, private sectors, everywhere. How have you worked that and what exactly is the fuel behind it?
So with POSH Act, in fact, the law came in 2013, as we all know. And while I was working, while I was litigating, and while I was also working with corporate clients later on, one query had started anyways coming in, trickling in, I would say, with regards to the compliance that needed to be done under POSH Act. And while I went deeper into the law, and I always had interest on gender related laws from college itself, though I never thought that I will pursue it as a professional endeavor, because I still feel that while we are in college, nobody tells us about different things that you can do apart from some set structures that you can follow after law school. So following or working on gender laws was not on my radar once I got out of college. But it's incidental that POSH Act also got passed in 2013. So when queries started pouring in, and when more and more I went deeper into the law and started studying the law, I realized that, this law was also facing one crucial gap, which happens with any other compliance laws in India, which is that a law is passed, then the implementation and the compliance of it is always imperfect. And especially with POSH Act, what was happening was that it's a unique blend, right? It's a blend of not just a compliance law, it combines a social obligation, and it also has a workplace safety impact, which influences and which has a larger bearing on the behavior of everybody who's working at the workplace to create a safe workplace. Now, when I started looking into that, and when I started going deeper into that and started looking at client queries and started looking at the gaps, I realized that trainings were a major chunk of the compliance work that was always getting missed out. So companies, what they were doing, they were framing their POSH policies as part of their larger labor compliance framework. But when it came to actually implementing it, going to doing the sessions for the ICCs, for the employees, making sure that you had a working ICC. ICC knew what was that they were supposed to do at the workplace. How do you conduct investigations? This is when I pulled my role as a lawyer and I started conducting sessions. I started learning how to conduct sessions. And I saw a lot of trainers do sessions on YouTube. And that was a very beginning stage, but I still got a great understanding of how do we communicate. And I think for me, what I broke it down was a question to be addressed vis-a-vis how do I connect with my audience? If I am going to tell them that there are certain do's and don'ts that you have to follow at your workplace, there is a certain inappropriate, appropriate workplace behavior that you have to manage at the workplace, as well as combine it with my legal acumen and understanding of the law, how do I go about solving that question? And for me, that journey motivated me. And I started conducting sessions, I started conducting trainings for ICCs, I started drafting policies, started working on investigations. And this is how I slowly built on my expertise. And one thing, of course, as lawyers, we know that research is our main fundamental grounding for any work that I'm going to learn. And this is something that I tell even juniors who come to me and ask me about how to build a practice, is that research is your foundation. So as a lawyer, which is what we are bringing on the table. So research went in terms of understanding Vishakha guidelines, cases that had come then at that point of time, then transitioning into POSH Act. And that's the motivation that I had to start working in this area.
Amazing. So there must be some challenges also. You must have faced a lot of common challenges while you were working for the organizations with gender sensitization training, as you were talking about, and the kind of issues that are related to gender-based discrimination at the workplace. So how do you process that? How do you make a roadmap for the solution of those kind of challenges that come during these kind of training?
So I would address this question in two parts. One is the challenges. So, yes, there are challenges while talking to any organization about implementation of this law and fulfilling the compliance mandate. Right from the very beginning, and my first steps into working on POSH Act started in 2016. So now it's going to be close to 10 years now. Right from at that point of time to now, there are challenges that are always there. I would divide it into two parts. There are obviously organizations who understand the seriousness of making sure that their workplaces are safe, and any form of discrimination, harassment, sexual harassment should be addressed rather than not be addressed and it becoming a bigger issue at hindsight. When you look back, you're like, I could have addressed it right in the very beginning. And of course, there are many organizations that I still meet who just want to do it as a compliance checkbox, who say that, what is the minimum that we should be doing just so that we are compliant with the law. And that's the challenge in terms of explaining to organizations why this is important. And of course, there is a legal obligation that makes it like a checkbox obligation that one has to mandatorily do. But one important thing and one challenge that I always face is to explain to organizations and to the leadership team that this is a top down approach. This compliance is not just a compliance, it's a cultural shift. So it really matters if the leadership team of an organization, how important is it for them to make sure that the workplace environment is safe for everyone. And I have seen that difference when the mandate comes from leadership that you have to train everyone, you have to set up an ICC that works, you have to train your managers as to how to address these cases when it comes to you, because they are in fact the first line of defense. People sometimes don't come even to ICCs, people go to their managers. So to make sure that these trainings are conducted, this messaging is sent across to everyone in the organization, that is the biggest challenge. So to convince organizations to do that. But what I have also seen is a shift. Now, it could be different reasons. I would, in fact, put it to three, four common reasons. Why I have now seen organizations also coming forward with their own mandates about it. Like, I don't have to convince them, they themselves come back with their own mandates that yes, we want to set up a legally compliant and a safe workplace, and we are ready to do whatever it takes, and you tell me what more can be done here. And I've seen few shifts. One shift has been vis-a-vis the fact that of course the law is even getting mature. It's been close to 10 years, so there is more understanding, there is more awareness. Second is Me Too movement. In 2018, after that, there has been a significant shift. There are two things, in fact, that happened. One is the Me Too movement, and second was that in the Companies Act, there was an amendment that was brought in one of the rules, which was that every company in their annual report has to file a statement saying that I have set up my ICC and I'm compliant with POSH Act. So therefore, there is another legal obligation that comes from there, which also makes a director stand up and ask, oh, what is it that I'm signing for? What is POSH Act? What is it that we are required to do under that? So that sort of shift we have seen over the years, and not just me, any POSH practitioner will tell you the same thing. And these are different shifts. Plus then pandemic happened, people went remote, then remote workplaces had a different sort of challenge in terms of making sure that people are aware that even though you're working from home, this is still your workplace. So there are many challenges, of course, and I'm sure moving forward also there'll be many more challenges that would come now that more and more investigations are happening. Now that more and more investigations are happening, there's a separate set of challenges that are coming up in terms of training the ICC as to what is your work, how do you do these investigations properly, so that you don't leave anything which is out of the law, or you don't leave anything which is not compliant with the overall structure. So overall, these have been the challenges. But of course, I would say that I personally have been lucky, I think, and to work with organizations who really also want to implement this law in its entire sense, not just as a checkbox.
Awesome news that things are changing and they are changing for good, actually. You have also worked across sectors like private sector, government bodies, institutions. How do you help them with your training in each setting? Because all of them are absolutely different. So, what strategy do you follow? How do you make it easier for them to understand? Because every sector people, they understand the same law in a very different format. So, how have you done that easily for them?
That's a great question, actually. So, since the time that I started working on POSH, as I said, it's become more of a law, or basically, what I meant to say that since I've started working on this, it's been a combination of like a personal pursuit in this area and combining it with my work as a lawyer. So, I was very focused that I'm going to target this as a problem statement and figure out solutions for each. And this is where what I've understood is that every audience, every sector is different. You can't be communicating the same message in the same format to different audience across different sectors. That cannot happen. There are two major challenges that come there. One is with vis-a-vis vernacular. If you do a session, for example, in English, whereas you're also doing that session for not just audience which understands English, but also your blue collar workers, then that kind of session won't land, because half the audience is going to understand it, half the audience is not going to understand it. Second, most important is context, sector wise context. For a private sector, for example, for a company which is technology services driven, which has a lot more educated young crowd which is there in their workplace, versus I talk of a government office where the audience is very different. The audience is older, the audience is more ingrained into the system. They've been working for a long time, they have a certain hierarchy that they are maintaining in their workplaces, and same examples and same things won't land to them. So one challenge that I face and what I address also is that for different trainings across different sectors, I contextualize it as per the audience that I'm going to face. So if it is the private sector, examples, the kind of messaging that goes, the kind of contextual examples and questions that I raise to them is different when it comes to a office, which is, for example, in this year I have conducted many sessions across government offices and government bodies, like departments, etc., or like PSUs. And there, my examples have to be very different. Examples have to be more direct, in fact. I can't be leaving too much to context. I can't be leaving too much to just making sure that they understand the subtleties of it. That doesn't happen. You have to drive the point across of what exactly is unacceptable, what is acceptable. Now, where that differs is for relatively younger crowd. There are many situations vis-a-vis dating, and where the line can get crossed in organizations, and how do you maintain your personal and professional boundaries at workplace. That kind of conversation becomes more relevant for them. And the same happens, the same contextualization has to be done when anybody, even when I am doing ICC trainings, because there are internal complaints committee who have just been set up. So they have never done an investigation, they have barely been told about what their roles and responsibility is, telling them how to start conducting an inquiry. Before that, the first step is to tell them, how do you even accept a complaint? When somebody comes and tells you that, this is my problem, what should I do? Then how do you start even addressing that? Forget about the law for a second. How are you empathetic? And given your role as an ICC member, how are you also responsible vis-a-vis how you respond? So that's like for a younger or a more for an ICC which is just set up. But for mature ICCs which have started doing investigations, therefore the focus is very different. The focus is, how do you conduct an investigation? How do you conduct an inquiry? Because a lot of them are non-lawyers, and they have to then follow civil inquiry proceedings. They have to conduct investigation, they have to conduct interviews. In some cases, they even have to do cross examination, they have to write an inquiry report. So that becomes a very different kind of training for the ICC members. So as I said, it's a lot of contextualization depending on the sector, depending on the audience, depending on the IC, depending on the organization. And only then I at least can tell myself that whether or not my training has been even success, has it even landed the way I wanted it to.
Absolutely sensational way of making people understand and make them sensitized is something which is need of the hour, and that's something which you are doing for so long. So what prompted you to go ahead and file a PIL in the year 2017 to ensure POSH Act compliance? What was the motivation behind this particular step, and the kind of changes that you may have seen over these many years that you have already filed? It's, I guess, 8 years now. What changes have you seen have been brought because of that particular PIL? Please enlighten us.
So the motivation behind filing the PIL was very simple. As I said, when I started reading deeper, reading the law, understanding it, by 2017, when we started doing the research behind the non-implementation or the extent to which the law was not implemented vis-a-vis the structures that were set up, there was a general understanding that before that, practically, I had worked in the area, right? So I had understood by that time that where is the local complaints committee? When we started finding out details of the locals complaint committee, because what ended up happening, and I'll take you through the sequence. When I started working, then when I'm conducting sessions, then I have to give them this information that if you have a complaint against your employer, then you go to the local complaints committee. Then I started finding out whether in Delhi or not there was a local complaints committee or not. No information. Then we started finding out that every organization has to file an annual report at the end of the calendar year to the district officer. Started finding out that information. Some states there was little information, some states there no information. So in 2017, we did a year-long exercise. The entire year we had devoted to just filing RTIs across all the states and union territories. And once that RTI was filed and answers were received, then filing a separate set of representation to the Secretary of Women and Child Development Department as well as the Chief Minister Office, that what exactly is the state of compliance of the law in your state. This is the information or non-information that we have received from the RTI. Now, we did this exercise because we wanted to highlight that the state of the law in terms of non-implementation is spread across the country. And we had received information and counsel from our senior advocate who was going to represent us that if you want to approach the Supreme Court, you have to show the extent. Otherwise, court will say that you should go to your separate high courts. So that year-long research and exercise helped. And that is the data that we collated, after which we had filed the PIL in 2018. Now, of course, it has taken its own time and it has taken its time in the court. But in 2023 onwards, now there has been a lot of movement, even till date. Now that there were two separate judgments that had come out, one in the PIL that I had filed, Initiatives for Inclusion Foundation versus Union of India, and Aureliano Fernandez versus State of Goa. So court tagged both of them, and now the implementation part is being taken together under Justice Nagaratna in the Supreme Court. Now, good part, and the reason why we had filed the PIL in the first place, we can see it after 8 years. The actual result of what we had gone out to do was that set up your structures under the Act. If you have created an Act, you have said that there are 3 mandatory structures under the law, then who's responsible for doing this? And every state has the responsibility to set up these structures within their states. Otherwise, how will the implementation even go forward? Private companies are never going to implement because they will be clear that I don't have any other place to file my annual report. LCCs are not working, so where would women working in the unorganized sector go? So there has been considerable movement in that matter now, especially in the last 1 year, I would say, because of Supreme Court's intervention. All the states right now have set up their district officers. They have nominated their district officers. And now what the court said in the last hearing was that we have to make this information accessible and public. Something that we have been pushing for a very long time is that please just don't leave it at setting up the structures. Make sure that that information is accessible. Make sure that the information regarding the local complaints committee is accessible, and push the states to make it more accessible vis-a-vis whatever platform is available to you. You want to make it accessible through your website, please do that. You want to go and file posters, do that. So that's one major development that has happened because of the PIL and because of the continuous movement, is that the structures are now being laid down. The fundamentals of the law, not just vis-a-vis ICCs, which was the responsibility of private organizations, but the government sector as well, the responsibility is now being fulfilled. And the second thing that has happened is that one of the main asks that we had in our PIL was that the role of central government in ensuring implementation of the law, which the way central government has addressed it is by setting up shebox. So there is a website now called shebox.gov.nic.in. And that shebox is an online portal where any woman can file a complaint of sexual harassment at workplace. If they are not aware of the ICC within their organization, they should not worry. They have this portal, they will file the complaint, and the complaint vis-a-vis backend will go to the organization who will then need to move on the complaint. Or if the complaint has to go to the local complaints committee, it will go from there. So again, the shebox is still at its nascent stage, it's still being set up, but it's a very welcome move in the aspect of ensuring accessibility, ensuring information, and ensuring that people know that this is where they need to go. This is who I need to approach when there is a complaint that I'm facing. If nothing else, then at least I should know who my district officer is, who I should go and tell that my ICC is not set up, my organization is not responding. Please take some steps here. So these are all, again, as I would say, it's a continuing movement. It's going to shape up in the course of, I guess, couple of more years. But it's a very welcome start from the journey that we started in 2017 to see it now where it is.
First of all, congratulations on that and the rigor that you have put in. It's absolutely amazing and commendable. The kind of work and courage that takes, it's amazing. You were talking about this particular case, Aurelio Fernandez. As per our understanding, your PIL is now being tagged with that particular case where Supreme Court is now monitoring every compliance across states to make sure that structure of the POSH Act is implemented, and they are being very, very aggressive about it. How do you think that this is going to impact not only the compliance, but people getting sensitized and institutions getting sensitized in order to not only file the complaints, but receive the complaints, as you said, that which and how the complaints have to be received also has to be taught. So how do you see this move is going to help?
See, there is a cascading impact of the PIL and of the various orders that are coming out of the court and which we have seen in the last 1 year. Now, the cascading impact is in various ways. One impact is that now states have been told that it is your responsibility to implement this law in your state. So, therefore, set up the structures under the act. Now, setting up the structures again has a cascading impact. Why? Because once district officers are notified and once more and more organizations have access to that information, then it is the role of the district officer under the POSH Act to collect annual reports of organizations who are there in their district. When they start receiving these annual reports, then the district officer has to have an understanding of how many complaints has come in their district, how many complaints have been looked into, how many complaints have not been addressed. So then this particular number or this particular information helps the district officer to look for more ways or implement more ways in terms of giving access or providing more information or providing accessibility in terms of information for the compliance of the law. So that is something that we are seeing. If we see across the country, slowly more and more district officers are now getting sensitized about their role. And in several, at least, I would say the biggest cities in India, the district officers are sending out show cause notices, are putting up ads in newspapers, and are circulating more and more information to organizations that if you are an organization with more than 10 employees, you need to set up an ICC within your organization. So, for organizations, the cascading impact is that they are now thinking about it. Now they are questioning this either from their lawyers or from their CA, CS, HR team, that what is it? What is it that we have to do in the organization? So slowly in that case, what has happened is that at least because of the PIL, two, three things happened. There are more notifications that are now going out in the public domain vis-a-vis setting up your ICCs in your organization if you have more than 10 employees. Secondly, in the she box itself, now there is a requirement for private organizations to register themselves. And slowly, at least in the next 1 year, this is going to become more and more common. More and more states are going to take out notifications for organizations to register. In that way, slowly but steadily, there is going to be a lot more information. And secondly, more people who are onboarded on at least one platform to have this collective understanding that this is what we need to do. We need to set up ICC, we need to do our sessions, we need to make sure that we have notices in the organization, we need to tell everybody that this is your ICC, these are your 4 members, this is how you reach out to them, this is the email ID where you go and tell them. So again, I'm breaking it down into the most simplest points, but it is in fact these basic steps that gets missed out right in the very beginning. So what I'm seeing because of the PIL and because of whatever is happening in the Supreme Court, that there is this cascading impact of information now trickling down to the private sector, which is anyways the largest sector, which has to comply with this law at their own organization level. And then of course there is a cascading impact of it on public institutions as well. So government bodies, PSUs, ministries, departments, that are being pushed separately by their women and child development department and the states that please comply with this law at your own level. And we are seeing similar separate movement happening there as well, that there is more and more awareness on conducting the sessions and setting up the ICCs.
So, Isha, when you were talking about the structural infrastructure, which is now being built after the PIL and after the intervention of Supreme Court for instruction with states, there must be a lot of tech that you must be seeing, the kind of emerging tech that everyone talks about. How do you see these emerging techs being helpful or non-helpful for not only implementation of POSH Act, but also to see or ensure the transparency or accessibility, or for that matter, accountability of ICCs across the institution? Have these texts had any value addition to the POSH Act itself? Because you have been working for so long, you have seen that particular transition. We would love to understand this point as well.
So, vis-a-vis role of emerging technologies, what I would say is that it's not something that we are seeing across organizations or across sectors in terms of usage. But I am also seeing many, at least the bigger organizations who have a big chunk of employees working with them on working on how to standardize complaint mechanisms. And that can only be done once you implement the right technological tools within your workplace. So good part is that even in India right now, there are many organizations that are now working on standardizing these processes. So if you think about it, one of the major issues that any organization would face, especially with a significant chunk of employees working under them, and many organizations are now working on it, is standardizing these complaint mechanisms or creating digital portals where these complaints are tagged, ICCs are informed, there's a separate ICC dashboard, they are doing checklists, they are providing modules. So a lot of information and a lot of technology that I'm seeing is being used vis-a-vis education. So if you see, there are a lot more sessions that have gone online, sensitivity sessions, because as an organization, you have to repeatedly do that. So how do you make it a structured program within the organization that doesn't get missed out because, let's assume, a person did not really do their compliance from their end? So I am seeing a lot more work that is happening in digitizing the modules vis-a-vis trainings, be it trainings for ICCs or be it training for employees. And that's a welcome step. I think the point is that, again, I think we started our session with that as well, is that understanding of workplace safety is very important from a prevention point of view. So more and more information you give to somebody, whatever action that they were doing consciously, subconsciously as well, if people start learning more about it, that this is the line that I have to maintain at my workplace, then there is going to be a cascading impact of that on their behavior and on prevention at the end of the day. So this is where we are seeing technology at least being embedded within the larger compliance purview.
Thank you so much for making these things so easy. You have now been working for more than a decade as an independent lawyer, as an entrepreneur, and being a woman. The kind of motivation that you have, we would love to understand where it comes from. Another thing, how and when did you decide to go for independent practice? And also, we would request you to give some advice or some checklist or anything that you followed for the students or the learners who want to enter this particular field, barring the fact that they are women or men. It's just that they are very new to the concept, especially the first generation lawyers, and they always have this feeling that where to go, where to start, what to start with, and where will we reach. So we'd request you to talk about that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Divya. So I would say that when I went independent, it's not just one factor that contributed to it. It were many factors. The fact that I would really boil it down to two things. One is an understanding that I got once I litigated and once I did my stint in journalism. One thing that I always feel, if you can't figure out what you want to do, you can also figure out what you don't want to do as well. Sometimes people always focus on the positive rather than looking at the fact that you also know certain don'ts that just will not work for you in your career. And one thing that I understood about myself was that I don't want to be in one silo throughout my journey. I am somebody who wants to combine separate things that I'm working on and see how I can sort of combine them together or weave them together into my professional journey. So, as I said, legal policy and impact were three areas that I wanted to work on simultaneously. And that's somewhere where I started working on. Now, there was a third and fourth angle that I understood was that I also wanted to remain cross functional. When I say cross functional, I mean that I work currently as a trainer, as a lawyer, as a consultant, as an investigator. So, even though my focus is one law, it also allows me to do many other things within that same paradigm. So, from that cross functionality point came my understanding that if I want to do something like this, then I need to be independent. The reason why, so that I can try different things. Because once you get caught up in a job or in a specific setup, some limitations come vis-a-vis what you can do and what you can't do. And I did not want to be in that domain. And of course, it really did help that the support that I got from my family and the support I got from my spouse was very instrumental in terms of making sure that I did not, even on days or even on situations when I used to think that it's getting like a lot and the hustle is too much, should I quit? But at least the counsel that I received from all of like my family in general has been very instrumental in me keeping to my journey. Advice to students, in fact, only two things I would say, and I tell this to anybody who approaches me even personally, is that develop subject matter expertise, develop subject matter depth. As lawyers, of course you can be jack of all trades, but once you start moving forward, it's good to start understanding for yourself what is it that you like to do and develop some depth and expertise in it so that your advice can reflect that. Your advice can reflect that maturity and that research that goes when you have that expertise, and that goes a long way. And again, to each his own, to each their own. Somebody can like corporate law, do that. If you like litigating and you like litigating in a certain area, please do that. But do figure out subject matter depth and expertise. And the second thing that I always say is that don't chase after titles, chase after what you want. Money is going to flow to you. Generally, like, people are going to know you. If whatever you want, if you want more people to know you, if you want money, whatever is it, you want work life balance, it's better to focus on your objectives in life rather than focusing on title. Because once you start chasing after titles, you realize after a point that there is a limitation to it, and there is going to be an end point after which you have to think about your objectives in life. So sort of start building an understanding about weaving it together, and it's going to help you build a more sustainable career.
Oh, thank you so much. I now will always remember that one has to also learn what you cannot do will always be a good start if you cannot understand what you can do best. Thank you so much for giving such a beautiful statements all through the interview. It has been amazing, amazing interview. And I personally have learned a lot. Thank you so much for being absolutely candid and clear about what you have to do from the very beginning, and all the best to you for doing this much good work for society. A pleasure that you gave us this much time. Thank you so much, Esha, for being here.
Thank
It
you.
has been
Thank you so
amazing.
much. No, thank you. Thank you, Super Lawyer team, for approaching and for making this interview happen. This was a great pleasure to just talk to you, and just helps me also, again, revise or reiterate certain things for myself as well.
Thank you so much.